listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm joined with my friend Cory Peay. He owns and operates an organic hemp farm in Athens, Tennessee. In 2020, he had a spiritual awakening that led him to learn more about shamanism, sound healing, and psychic abilities. He now holds shamanic sound healing ceremonies for the surrounding communities. It's his intention that every person he crosses paths with be filled with love, appreciation, and gratitude. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out.
I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. I've been really looking forward to doing this episode ever since I went to one of your sound healing events. It was really nice. It was with the ecstatic dance, so I don't know if everyone always feels that way, but I was just so relaxed by the time we started that I don't know, I immediately went into having this really cool experience, so I loved it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Good. Can you share with us a little background on yourself and your spiritual awakening?
So I went to school for plant biology in Kennesaw, Georgia, and I was raised Christian and always been very logical and scientific and analytical in my thought process. But I've always at the same time had thoughts and feelings or a sense of intuition that there's stuff going on around us that can't currently be explained. Mm-hmm. After college, I moved to Colorado and got 5 years of experience growing hemp, cannabis, and organic produce. And in 2019, I moved to Tennessee to start my own farm. In 2020, I started detoxing and cleansing my mind and body through diet and the information that I was consuming. So I never really watched much TV, but just even music and everything, I just pretty much only started watching documentaries and watching Gaia and consuming that kind of information. And I also started filtering my water heavily, like my shower water and my drinking water, and removing all the fluoride. And I began taking lion's mane mushrooms and 5 defenders, which is like chenga, maitake, and reishi, and just consuming, good high vibrational foods. Mm-hmm. And I think that was kind of like a prerequisite to my awakening.
Right.
I then started to meditate regularly for about 3 to 4 hours a day. I just would do it that'd be the first thing that I would do when I would wake up is just meditate before I started my day. I started listening to sound healing by Tom Kenya. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Kenya, but he's a sound healer. And so I was doing some of his meditations and really started to have these profound experiences start to occur in meditation. Mm-hmm. Then one day when I was meditating, I just started thinking about all the bad things that I've ever done in my life and just any, bad sort of stuff that I was holding on to, and just started thinking about that and processing it. And then I just spontaneously said the Lord's Prayer, which I was raised Christian, so I always probably knew it, but I never knew it word for word, and I just recited that in my mind. Mm-hmm. And just asked for forgiveness and to walk the path that was laid out for me, just to walk that path. And pretty much a day or two after doing that, I started to have really profound experiences that occurred in meditation. And then when I started to have these experiences, I'd be listening to a book on shamanism, and it would talk about exactly what I was experiencing, which I guess you have that
Synchronicity, yeah.
that starts to occur. And so that began happening. The first thing that kind of started that I thought was really interesting was these waves of light started like pulsating across my field of view, and it was just like whoa, whoa, whoa. Like when I was in meditation, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting, so I'm gonna keep doing this and see where this goes." And then the next day, while I was meditating at like it was like 12 noon on a Sunday, and I'm laying there in a deep state of meditation, and it was almost like a UFO entered my field of view, and then like a beam came down, and now I'm aware I'm laying on a table, but I'm also aware I'm laying on my bed at the same time, and there's these three beings of light standing over me, and they just like telepathically say, love, appreciation, gratitude, you're welcome, and then just like left my field of view. And so I was like, well, that was really profound. Like, what the heck was that? And I'm listening to this book on shamanism, and it, I had this experience. And then in this book, like a month later, it says, one of the most powerful tools in a shaman's medicine bag is love, appreciation, and gratitude. And so it was like that whole synchronization that occurred, and kind of opened my eyes to like, what is going on? It was unique.
Right.
And then another time I was meditating, and I held a question. I was just like, asking like, what am I? And I just was repeating that, like, what am I? What am I? What am I? And then it just came to me, that I am love. And like, that's what we all are in a sense. Yeah. So it was pretty intense. And then probably the most profound experience I've ever had was, it was like 3:30 in the morning. Wake up, I'm meditating, and I like start hearing rain. And I'm like, I say to my girlfriend, is it raining? And she's like, no, it's not raining. I was like, well, I'm hearing rain. This is weird. And I was like, are you talking? And she's like, no, I'm not talking. I was like, well, I'm starting to hear these voices. And so I did this thing that I've always been able to do since I was a child, where I focus right in between my eyes, and you kind of like flex your eyes a little bit. And it sounds like wah, 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 when you do it, kind of like maybe a roaring river in the background or something like that, or an avalanche. And so when I consciously did that, it was just like turning a dial on a radio, and it just locked in on one of those channels, and then I just like felt this connection form between me and whatever was talking, and it just started coming through, and every single word that it was saying was like radiating through my whole body. I just like became aware of my torus field, and I could just feel the energy coming out of me and up through me as this, it was just like a really mighty voice talking. And that's, it freaked me out. I was scared. I was like, are you God? Like, what are you? And I'm talking over what it's trying to tell me. And then it was just like, shut up, you stupid human, and listen. And I was like, I'm out of here. And I like opened my eyes and came out of that. I've not ever been able to do that ever again. That was like 2 years ago. But that's what opened my eyes to psychic ability being real. Then I started having some remote viewing things occur in meditation, and I'm like, okay, all this stuff is real.
Right.
Yeah, and pretty eye-opening. But yeah, you hear about it your whole life, but you always think, well, they're just crazy, and what the heck are they talking about? Until you actually experience something like that.
Right. I always tell people, like, you just have to experience. Like, we can talk about it, we can share about it to make people maybe more comfortable. Like, if it did happen to them, like, kind of like, I don't know, that preparation of what it could be like. But it's different for everybody, Like, you were talking, and there was a lot of similarities in things that have happened to me, like Sometimes I would hear like a radio. It was like when you turn it and it's in between stations, like,
Yep.
and then sometimes I would hear people talking, and I was like, I don't think that they know I can hear them. It was really weird. It was like I would just started tuning into like really random stuff, right? And I would just hear music that I had never heard before. And I'm like, what am I hearing? Then when you talked about the beings that you saw that came to you, that I had these beings working on me one time, and I asked the Akashic Records, I said, who is working on me? And they looked kind of like blue light, and they were like, oh, this is the MAP team. They're the medical assistance program. They just like work with humanity, right? But I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's a name for this? Like, so it really, like, all of it happened over the course of years. But as you were talking, it was so cool because I haven't quite met anyone that had that experience with the beings and also the sound of like the frequency shifting. So I used to think, yeah, I might be losing my mind, right? I'd listened to Coast to Coast, okay? So I I was a little open-minded about it, but then I had never met anyone else. And I wasn't even trying to do it, but I had been doing Kundalini yoga and meditating. So I guess I had been working on and like I don't know, like opening myself up to it. And so it was just I guess the universe is like, "Oh, you're ready. Let's give you another mind-opening experience." So I just feel like you were saying, like you start changing your diet, you start just consuming good foods and everything, and it's like as your vibration shifts, you start being more aware of these things. Like they're always there, but you just don't see them or feel them or hear them. Like you become more sensitive as you eliminate like the loud music or the Simpsons or whatever you just like have playing all the time. You don't realize maybe I would hear stuff if I didn't always have the TV on or the fan on and same with the food. Like it cleanses your aura, right? So you're going to start like pulling in things that vibrate at like the same rate, So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, their awakening is like first starts with like diet or they go to yoga or something like that and they're not even prepared, but then it just starts happening. So I really
Yeah.
loved it. Thank you for sharing that story with us.
Yeah, I didn't even start doing the Kundalini yoga until after all of this happened.
Oh,
And then I was
wow.
like, oh, well, this is definitely real. I'm going to start exploring other things
Right.
going on. And I went to Isha Institute here in Tennessee and had really profound experiences occur there. Just sitting in their Adobe. It was really profound. That's like the first time I'd ever done the Omkar. And the lady just like said her prayer in Sanskrit after the end of it. And when I shut my eyes, I just like perceived her sitting in a triangle, but as like a glowing being of light, the same way those three beings were, like without their body, just like a glowing being of light sitting in a triangle. And I was like, well, what the heck was that?
I love it. Like, I think some people think meditation is just, well, they're like, quiet the mind. That's important. It's important to quiet the mind. But I like go places. I see things. The first time I projected awake was during this mystical meditation. So you lay down and they like kind of do like some yoga nidra. This was at like a Sufi retreat. So there was lots of chanting, but right before we laid down, and I think she might have continued to speak or something. But anyways, I went into the kitchen downstairs, like my astral body. And I was like, oh my God. I could see the cabinets. I could touch. I was like, this is really freaking me out. I had like lucid dreaming and stuff, but I had never projected while I was awake before. So I'm like, there is something magical going on here, And I was like 20 years old at the time. And I don't know. I feel really lucky that I just met these guides along the way because that was just one of my college professors. She was like, you want to go on a Sufi retreat with me? I was like, okay. So I just like took a chance and went, and it was life changing, And then I got so lucky to like Kundalini yoga was one of my main introductions to like taking a in-person class versus just like videos. I didn't realize at the time that that's kind of rare for that to be like your intro to yoga. You know, because some people are like, they do hatha yoga. I was like, well, I kind of started off like with a bang and was doing like mantras and stuff. And it's so cool. I loved when you started um, doing familiar mantras. I was like, it felt like I was like
Oh
at
yeah.
home, you know? I'm like, I've never heard anyone else do this out and about, you know?
Well, when I was trying to make sense of what was occurring, I'm like Googling stuff. I'm like,
Hmm.
what's going on? Oh, Kundalini awakening, Kundalini awakening. And so I'm like
Right.
reading about that. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to try some Kundalini yoga. And then when I started doing it, and it just immediately, these waves of energy like pulsating through my hands and
Hmm.
through my whole body. And I was like, I've never felt this feeling ever. And so I'm just stuck with it now.
Right. And there's
Yeah.
so many techniques. Like, one of the first times I really saw energy with my own eyes is like I was doing some kind of meditation where they're like, look at your nose and like you're breathing. And I'm like, I could actually see energy all over the place and not just like the sparkles that you see when you look at the sky. It was like all around me. And I'm just like, all I'm doing is looking at my nose and chanting with these people, you know, because the group energy, I guess, it changes things, but I don't know. I love it. I love that other people are getting into Kundalini yoga and that it's becoming more popular because I think we're ready for it. You know, I think humanity, like, that's our next step is like realizing that we're just right next to this veil. Like, it doesn't even take much to peel back a layer and see, oh my gosh, we're spiritual beings. Like, this is just an experience I'm having, you know?
I'm just wearing this body.
Right. It's temporary. And we're actually still so like in tune with the divine. You know, we're not that far away from it. Like, I feel like we get distracted or depressed and we're like, we want to go home. You know, everyone's like, I want to go home. I don't feel like home here. And I'm like, you're just right there. It's always like these beings of love are so near us all the time. And like you, once you start meditating, you feel them.
Oh
You
yeah.
feel their love and you don't even have to see them because you're like, I know that I'm supported, you know? And I think the love, it was like that was a big message for you. But every time I have a mystical experience, I come back and I'm like, oh my God, we are so loved. And we just don't even realize it until we go there and feel it for ourselves. And it's just like, we think, oh, everything's hard, but and it is like there's challenges on earth. Like it's a challenging place. But if you can just focus on that love, like I don't know, there's just nothing better, you know, than that. So, and that's where we're going, you know, that's what we are. That's where we came from, you know. So
Exactly.
I love it. So, could you explain to us what shamanism is and how you incorporate it into sound healing?
So if you look up the definition, they state it as a religious practice or belief that involves a practitioner interacting with what they believe to be a spirit world through altered states of consciousness, such as trance. So they say what they believe to be a spirit world, meaning that they don't actually think that that's real, is my interpretation of that definition.
Right.
They're like, these indigenous cultures say they're
Right. It's like
interacting with the spirit.
pseudoscience. Or...
Yeah. Doesn't mean that it's not happening just because you can't see it. We only see a very small percentage of what's going on around us on this electromagnetic spectrum of radiation that's all around you.
Right.
And so my definition, I think it's more of a way of life, a realization that all things are conscious and connected, all things have a spirit, and life itself is sacred. So like a medicine man or a healer who wants to help the community heal and learn, that's my interpretation of what a shaman is. They, you know, acquire information through an altered state of consciousness and then bring that to the community to share that knowledge with them and help them heal. That's how I would interpret it.
Right. He's like
Yeah.
the middleman between humanity and the divine or something like.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be my definition. And I think that life is a gift bestowed upon all things by the Creator. For creation lies at the foundation of existence. So I think that creation is within all things. And so all things are connected. And life itself is, this gift that we're just given, That's how I would interpret life. But I incorporate shamanism into sound healing by creating and holding sacred space. I do this by projecting and radiating love, appreciation, and gratitude, from me while the ceremony is going on. That's pretty much all I'm doing, is just projecting like love, appreciation, and gratitude into that room, into that space, and holding that intention so that a healing experience can occur. Like, the instruments are just tools that I'm using to put people into an altered state of consciousness. It changes your brainwave frequency from beta down to theta, and you're in a deep meditative state. But as far as what I'm doing on an energetic or like spiritual level, is I'm just holding that space so that the person can virtually heal themselves.
Right.
Whether there's blockages from traumas that are, in their energy channels, or blockages that they cannot overcome, or just like, maybe they've had a death in the family or traumatic life event that they can't process. And so utilizing the sound healing, I'm removing the blockages to allow people to, I would think, would be to evolve, because evolution is just change. So it's giving you the ability to change or evolve if you want to.
Right.
It's a choice. Everyone has free will.
Right.
But you never know. Or maybe it's just to have that profound mystical experience that opens your eyes up to other things that are going on that you just didn't conceptualize as real. Like I didn't, even up to 2 years ago. I would, if I talk to myself now, I'd be like, you are crazy.
Yeah.
But then I've experienced these things and then have a greater understanding where I'm like, no, I know that this is real, or that this occurred, and kind of start to grasp on a deeper level these concepts. But
It's wild, like you were talking about, like the synchronicity, because you have these experiences. There might be some doubt, and like as soon as I have a doubt, something will happen, or someone else will say exactly, like what I had went through. Or because during the sound healing, I had this vision of the sun being a spiral, okay, and then at the beginning there was like this handprint I had to put my hand on so I could go through this like tunnel or portal or something. My friend got a tattoo like the very next day, and it was the hand, I think I sent it to you, with the spiral, and then the sun with the spiral in it. And I was just like, I cannot believe that this is the image that I just saw. And I wasn't in doubt, but it definitely was, this is like a universal experience. Like putting your hand on the thing, I don't know, it's very Rafiki-like, but I thought, okay, maybe my imagination is just so big. I don't know. But the thing about it, okay, I haven't told the full story, but my spirit guide was a monkey. I didn't know what kind of monkey it was. I think in my head, I was like, I wonder what kind of monkey it was. And it was like, I immediately knew it was a howler monkey. Like the question was just, as soon as I had the question, it was just answered. I didn't hear anyone say it. It was just like, I was like, what is this? Howler monkey. I went home and like Googled howler monkeys, and it was okay. And I had started off in this rainforest, and when I looked up howler monkeys, they are like a Mayan spirit guide, and they're like known in that part of the world where there's like lots of rainforests. And I'm like, okay, I might have imagined that, but I really don't know that much about these monkeys, and I really hadn't associated them with this part of the world. And I don't know. It was just like very confirming for me that I did not make that up at all. So I don't know. I loved it. But um, let's see. Have there been any scientific studies that explain what's going on in our bodies when we experience sound healing? I know you talked a little bit about the brain waves, but
So there's a few studies going on associated with that, and a lot that are going on showing that it is relaxing, reduces stress, lowers your heart rate, alters your consciousness. They can measure, through EEG, your brainwave of what brainwave frequency are you in when this is occurring. But they also, what they're showing is when you're in a sound healing session, that the sound waves are working on you at a cellular level. So it's penetrating into your cells and reorganizing them and reshaping them. And, you know, sound and vibrations travel really fast through water, and we're 70% water. And so this is where like cymatics comes in too, is when those frequencies are going into you, it's kind of reorganizing all your cells, and even like your brain is starting to form these like geometric images, through cymatics. But yeah, it's stimulating every cell in your body, and so you're having a full on experience occur at the cellular level. And then so what they're showing that's doing is, speeding up the healing process after injuries, or if you go get a surgery. There's studies showing that if you, do sound healing therapies immediately after surgeries, that it's speeding up the healing process. And then I think what it does on an energetic level is it just rebalances and retunes you. There's so much interference going on all around you, and stress and stuff going on, and we're like deprived from these healing frequencies because we're being bombarded by all these other frequencies that we don't know if they're good for us or not.
Right.
And so it kind of retunes your whole system, and then helps, clear the blockages, and allows for the prana to flow through your system. But you also have a process which referred to as entrainment occur, and that's all objects resonate. It's called their resonance frequency. They're oscillating. It's the frequency at which they're oscillating. Nothing is solid in this world. Everything is in a constant state of vibration. And so, through stress and all different kinds of things going on in your world, your system can come out of sync or out of vibration with its normal rhythm. So when you start getting in tune with nature and then start doing stuff like sound healing, your body does what's referred to as entrainment, where it synchronizes with those vibrations. And so your body actually tunes in to the instruments like the gong, and you begin to resonate with that frequency. And so it's kind of like elevating you up, to those healing frequencies, and your body and your whole system kind of like pairs with that. Is what they're starting to show. Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
so cool.
fascinating to me. I mean, this is all new. I've only been doing sound healing for 5 months now. So,
Right.
yeah.
I feel like you're doing pretty good. Like
Well,
you
I
seemed kind of
just,
like a pro when I went.
well, I went and I met with these shamans in Vegas and had a ceremony, and I held the intention, like what's my purpose? What am I need to do? And it just came to me, that I had a gift that I needed to go share with as many people as I can. So, I just get out of the way and enter that state of flow, and just
Right.
let, the instruments just flow. That's how I learned. I just taught myself and just started playing and just entering that state, and just letting it all flow out of me, and then just, practicing. And yeah, I'm blow my own mind. I'm fascinated with all of it. You know,
Yeah.
it's new to me. So
Right. That's so cool. I
yeah,
think I don't know if you know Molly May. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
she might have sent you
Hmm.
to me. But the I had a girl on my show, the Purple Sage Aura Photography, and she had taken an aura photo of Molly May, and then I think she had like a maybe just a very short, like 10 or 15 minutes of sound healing, and took another photo. And like at first it was just like a red aura. But when after the sound healing, so one side of the body is like what you have in that moment that you're bringing, or that you have right then, and then the other side was what you're bringing towards you. Her aura went from all red to having like green and yellow, and like it just shifted. So not only did it affect her in the present, but it actually changed the color that was coming towards her in the future. So it's like it feels like, okay, I'm having this experience right now, but if the aura thing is correct at all, I feel like you carry it with you from that moment on. Like it actually affects you, maybe not permanently, but it starts bringing things into your auric field that were not there before.
Oh, absolutely.
So I feel like that's like you start, like you change your resonance, but then you like attract things into your life because now your aura's pulling them in, right? So,
When you're resonating at a higher frequency, I've heard the gongs stay with you. You resonate with them just sitting with them one time for 40 years. You
wow.
know, they will resonate with you
Yeah.
just from, doing one session.
That is really cool. I did not realize that. I know the number 40 comes up all the time in Kundalini yoga, but 40 years, that is really cool. So, um, do you think that all of the sounds we experience throughout the day are affecting us energetically? So, like when we're driving down the road, we've got like dogs barking, horns honking. Like, is that all coming in just the same way? Like,
I think so for sure. I think the world has become extremely noisy all around us. Everywhere you go, there's noise. You hear equipment going, and that has an effect on us. But also the radio waves,
mm-hmm,
your cell phone. It's like I can just, like, when I hold it in my hand, I can like feel that,
right?
and uh, you don't know if that's good or what that's doing to you
Mm-hmm.
on an energetic level. And then just looking into it, the light you're perceiving
Yes.
on a subconscious level, you're just absorbing all this information, and you're only really consciously absorbing a very small percentage of this information. So what effect is all of that having on us? What's
Mm,
TV having on us? Anything
right.
you listen to, music, all of that has an effect on us energetically, for
Right.
sure.
I
And then on
agree.
a spiritual level as well, just the, how your consciousness operates, I think that all of that factors into your experience and what your thought process of what's going on. I think if you're listening to negative music, well, that's going to keep you in that state.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like is it Emoto, the guy that did the water
Oh,
healing?
yeah.
And it
I've
was
seen
like
that.
certain things they
Secrets of
were
Water. Yeah.
saying, like, but you think about music, if you're listening to, okay, I'm gonna say Evanescence because when I was younger, I went through this phase where I listened to Evanescence a lot. I love her voice, but I got really depressed, and there was a point where I'm like, I cannot listen to this anymore. Not like forever. Like if it came on the radio, that would be different. But I was listening to it like regularly and like learning to sing it, and there was a point where I'm like, wow, I'm like really low right now. But if you think about like if it's affecting the water, if you say like something like sad or mean or whatever, like our bodies are water. So I'm like, it probably was. It was affecting me. And I'm just like a really sensitive person. So I started noticing it. And I was like, I think it's what I'm listening to? So I have a hard time like with a lot of like the metal and stuff. I know some people need scream therapy. That's great. But for me, it does. It like brings me down
Oh, yeah. And
instead
that
of,
state of unease and causes anxiety.
right, I can like feel this person suffering, and I'm just like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
gosh, this is intense. So yeah, I feel you there, and just as far as like the phone goes, like I start getting disoriented. If I look at my phone too much, I feel like my eyes get blurry. I get brain fog. I'm like, this is affecting me. I don't know exactly what it's doing. But I have to like tell people, I'm like, I can't message anymore. Like you have to call and I'll put you on speakerphone because like just looking at my phone gets overwhelming. And I can like people read audio or read books on like tablets. I'm like, how do
Yeah.
you stare at it all the time? Like I would literally feel like my eyes start going crossed or something, but it's a lot of information. And so like I never really thought about it exactly how you said it, but like you're just taking in so much. It's almost like you don't absorb it. And so I read a lot of books. And when I read books, I write in them, I take notes, I stop and I think about what I read, I come back. But when I read something online, it's like I'm all over the place. I got 30 tabs up. I'm like, it's not soaking in the same way, you know? So it's like this technology is just, it's like too much for us, you know? Like we need to slow it down and get back to that state of nature, which is, it's moving, but it's not just immediate. Like it takes time when you plant a seed for it to start growing. And that's how it is with like thoughts sometimes, you know? You're just like planting too many in one space. Like they need room to grow, you know, they need to be nourished and time. And so I've noticed some people like they'll have this like awakening and they'll watch every spirit science video. I love spirit science. I'm not down on it. But they watch all of the stuff all like in like 2 weeks and they come to me and they're like twitching and they're like, it's like saying all this stuff, but it's like they don't understand it, but it's like they know it, they can recite it, but they don't understand how to process it or what do you do with it? Like how does this help you?
Yeah, integration, that's a big key factor for anything.
Right.
You have to integrate it and learn from what you're learning.
Right. That's after the sound healing. I felt like I thought about it. I had shared it with my friends. And at one point, you're like, you should write it down. And that was like a week later. And I felt like just taking the time to sit there and write it out was like the way it really set for me. But had I moved on and, you know, like started a new mystical, so, you know, like what more can I do? I need something more. It's like we get like, we're like spiritual junkies or something. I'm like, just absorb what you have right now. Like live in the moment, not what am I going to do next, right? And I'm only saying that because I do that a lot. I'm like interviewing lots of people, so always learning something new. But sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to allow them to teach it to me. I don't have to spend all this time researching it. The best way for me is to learn in person or to go to, like, I was like, I have to go to a sound healing before the interview because how else am I going to understand it? You know, I'd never laid down and experienced it. I've been to like metaphysical fairs. So it's like there was sound healing, but it was all sorts of sounds going on. So it was really special. And I feel like I might have another experience, but I'll never forget it because I allowed the space for it. And then I like meditated on it and I was like, what does this mean? You know, like it was like a whole week where I just allowed thoughts to come in, you know? So is there a difference between listening to a recording versus being there in person with sound healing?
I think so. I think there's a big difference personally, just from hearing gongs on different songs or even through like the Kundalini yoga, you might hear it, they might play it in a meditation, but you're not like feeling that
Right.
like go into your cells like you do in person. And then also all the energy in the room has an effect on what's going on. So I think like a recording, it might sound nice, but I do think it's on like an energetic level missing a large portion of, what's being emitted from those instruments and then
Right.
just the feelings that you get that are associated with those instruments.
Right, because when someone hits a gong, like it's like
Yeah.
my whole body feels it. It's not just in my ears. It's like I start feeling it in my hand. I mean, there's not a part of me where I don't feel like it's buzzing with the gong.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why it would be important to be in person for that, for sure. So, could you share with us what a ceremony is like and some of the common experiences that arise?
So first, I like to start it with a cacao. And so we'll drink about 4 ounces of cacao, and that naturally puts you into gamma, which is a brainwave frequency associated with heightened perception. And then it also increases the blood flow to the brain. So that's going to keep you alert during the session. Sometimes when you go into theta, you can get too relaxed and just fall asleep.
Right.
But not to say that you're not going to remember what's going to happen. But so that's why I like to do the cacao. It kind of keeps people alert, puts them in gamma. You have heightened perception occurring, and it tastes good. It's just really good for your body. It's something that, you should really consider consuming on a daily basis versus coffee,
Right.
which is bad on your adrenals. You get adrenal fatigue. It's extremely addictive, and you get the jitters, and it just keeps you in beta brainwave frequency. So it's kind of hard to meditate if you actually do drink a lot of coffee, because
Right.
you can't alter your brainwave frequency. It keeps you in beta versus allowing you to go into alpha, delta, or theta, or gamma.
That's interesting because the aura photography girl, the day that she came, it was a really hard night, and I ended up having coffee, and she could see it in my aura. Like, it had actually affected it. And I'm not saying like I never will drink coffee again, but I've been very aware that it's having an effect on me. So like before the interviews, I'm like, I'm going to drink tea. I'm not going to try to hype myself up too much. But with the cacao, I didn't even know that. That's like totally new to me, but I do my own little cacao ceremony once a month at the new moon to set intentions. But I didn't really think about what it was doing. I probably should have, but I just had a friend one time bring it to me, and he was like, drink this at the new year when you write your intentions down. And it was such a wonderful experience. I went and bought a whole bunch of it, and like, I'm going to start doing this once a month. But I never thought about that it's actually affecting, like, me on like that energetic level. But I feel so happy. The first time I ever sipped cacao, I started laughing. Like, I was like bliss or something. I don't understand it because I didn't love the taste the first time I made it. I didn't tweak it at all. Like, now I add like cinnamon
Oh, yeah.
and I make it yummy. So it's almost like drinking hot chocolate now. But the first time I drank it, it was like very bitter. And but it was like I felt the effects immediately of just very happy, and like the energy. I ended up being like stayed up really late. He didn't warn me about that. He's like, yeah, it's chocolate, But I remember just like I couldn't sleep. Like, my body was buzzing, but I wasn't like shaky like I get with coffee. I was just like very happy. I'm like, oh, I want to read books and do yoga. I didn't think it was actually changing my, like, maybe my vibration or something. So now when I drink it, I'm going to be more mindful of that.
Yeah, that's how I like to start. I do the cacao and just tell them to focus on what it's doing to their body and how it makes them feel. So you act kind of like a meditation, and then it's good to add cinnamon and like honey or a little cayenne pepper and some lemon juice, because then when you make that little concoction, the cacao actually helps all that absorb into your system, even better. And all of those things are really good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So that's
cool.
like a little super brew that you consume every morning.
Right. I'm gonna try to sprinkle it in maybe daily for a little bit and just see how it changes me. So.
And then, so after the cacao, I like to do a little bit of breath work. So I'll do like breath of fire. That's from Kundalini Yoga, just to get all the glands and organs start functioning at a higher level, gets everything moving and flowing. And so I like to start with that. And then I'll do some pranayama. That'll, increase the energy, keep you alert during the sound healing. And then then I form brain heart coherence, and so I do that. The shaman out in Vegas was the one who showed me how to do this, but you just like clap your hands and rub them together, and then put them on your heart, and then just take in 3 deep inhale, slow exhale, and then just feel your heartbeat after those 3 breaths, and then you'll just 3 times, and just pay attention to how you feel after doing that. But when she did that showed me that, and right when I clapped my hands and rubbed them together and like put them on my heart, it just like came alive, and I
Right,
just
like
felt it like pulsating in my
defibrillator.
chest. Yeah, like brought my heart to life, and I was like, what was that? And so I had like a profound effect. So I'm like, I'm gonna use this.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't I? That's why she showed me. And same with the cacao. I did that with her, and she pretty much like, you should use this in your ceremonies, and just
Right.
told me, like, so that's why I use it.
That's really
But
cool.
so then after doing that, I'll call on the directions, and call on the archangels and form sacred space. And then I always say the Lord's Prayer. And that's just because it's something that I've had personally an experience with, and I use that. I don't, when I think about religion, I don't want to be tied to a specific religion. I think there's like truth within all of them, and then there's lies within all of them, because it's been touched by man and retranslated and rewritten, and stuff's been omitted. And
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, the Lord's prayer was effective for me, so I use it. That's like what I'm drawn to.
Right.
And then so I'll do that, and then have just put on their mask, and lay down, and then I'll start the ceremony and play, for about an hour. That's I think about the minimum that you need to enter a deep state. The longer, the deeper you can go, but
Right.
really a good hour is what's required. And then I close with long time sunshine, and yeah, and then we just kind of share our experience. And a lot of times people don't share, they're just like,
Yeah.
well, right after it, you're still trying to process what just happened, and
Uh-huh.
kind of fully take in what occurred, which even,
Right.
you might not even be able to do for months after, where it's fully
Right.
comprehend what occurs during that. But yeah, a lot of times people just don't even want to, they don't share. Maybe they just can't even put it into words
Mm-hmm.
to describe what they experience. But a lot of the common experiences that do occur is people see colors. You'll have twitching occur, and that's like where it's unblocking your energy channels. People feel like they're floating or in space. They'll have, visions. It's referred to as journeying. You might go on a journey like what you experience, where uh, the monkey came to you and guided you to the door, and then you walked through it, and it stood there and guarded the gate until you came
Right.
back.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
So it's different for everybody.
Right.
And I think every time you do one, it's always different. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
you asked people to share, but when people started sharing, it seemed like they had really good physical things, like they were just really at peace, or they were comfortable. So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna share
Well,
that.
yeah, yeah, they say stuff like that, but they don't want to share the good stuff that, like,
Right.
I'm like, no, I want to know what happened.
Right. I shared it with you, but I was nervous to share it in the group.
Yeah,
And
and I'm
and there
sure
was a
everyone's like
lot,
that.
so it's like 30 minutes worth of information. So I'm like, how would I even describe this in like 3 minutes just talking to a group? I don't know. I feel like I would just sound like there's a monkey. Like people be like, okay. So I'm always nervous to share, but it's cool that there are other people having like a journey where they're actually like seeing things and getting messages. And because I got messages. Like it was, I think I'm going to read it at the end because I think it's important.
Yeah, you should.
They like really wanted me to share it. They were like adamant, like, you need to understand this. So I feel like at some level, maybe they knew I was going to be sharing it with a larger group. So I'm going to read it at the end and let people see it.
That's usually, the common things that occur. People might see colors, they might feel vibrations in different areas of their body, sensations, or, you might feel the vibration in like your throat or something, and that could just be because that's what needed to be worked on. And so that's what's absorbing a lot of what's coming out of, the instruments.
Right.
And, I've had people say many different things. It's usually always different, but there's similarities. You'll get cold when you journey, so normally you want to do it like with a blanket and a pillow and an eye mask so that your brain starts producing melatonin. That's like really a key factor. Light affects what's going on, so that's why you put the mask on.
Right, because light has a vibration, so it makes sense that it would interact with it.
Yeah, and then also I recommend if you ever do a session, try not to look at your phone for like an hour before you do it. So then that way, you don't have that is affecting your pineal gland is directly absorbing what's coming out of that phone. And so, that might even aid in a more profound experience. But yeah, because we look at our phones like hundreds of times a day. It's ridiculous.
We're not even thinking about it.
Oh yeah, it's just like entrained in us. I
had this sensation in the back of my head. It was like kind of where my neck meets my head. And it was like, it felt like very fluidy. And then it almost made me feel like I was going to get a headache. Like the very start of a headache. But then I feel like you switched instruments or something shifted and it cleared up. But it was like I could feel this energy in the back of my head. So I normally might think of like, oh, the third eye, but this was on the back. So I was like, not sure what that was, but
that happened to me in the ceremony with the shamans, and she said it was the accumulation of the cosmic energy. Because she could tell I was like going, moving my neck, and then I like grabbed a pillow and like put it behind my head, and she was like, "Oh, the reason you were feeling that feeling, at the base of your skull." It was the cosmic energy accumulating there, but it could also been the cerebral spinal fluid going up to your spine. I don't know. But yeah, I experienced the same thing when I did it. That was my second time ever doing a session.
Okay,
but
that's cool. How has this journey into sound healing affected you personally, and what's been the most meaningful experience that stands out for you?
So it's been life-changing. Like I said, I blow my own mind even, every time when I do a ceremony. I'm like, did that just happen? Even I'm like still like blown away. I'm just like, what was that?
Right.
It's been life-changing for me. I think, I've always had ADHD, and I think it's really calmed me down a whole lot. Meditation and sound healing together, both I think, tend to do that. And I wish, I can't go back in time, but I wish when I was in like elementary school that I knew and could utilize things like yoga and sound therapy and meditation to just naturally balance my system out versus taking, they just wanted to prescribe Ritalin and Adderall to a child in elementary school. It's crazy.
It is wild.
But yeah. So I think it's been life-changing and eye-opening. It's really intense and powerful. I have a great respect for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the most interesting thing that has occurred, there's two of them, and I'm not going to share anyone's names about kind of the experience they've experienced, but it's like something that really stood out to me the most. So the first one, I did a ceremony this was at Renegade, and I did the ceremony, and I could tell this lady was having kind of a difficult time. She was like really twitching and kind of shaking,
Mm.
almost semi-convulsing in a sense. And I like walk over to her and I just place the gong right behind her, and I hit it, and then I just like walked up to her and just like put my hand over her face and just projected the love, appreciation, and gratitude, into her. And she immediately like went still. And then so I was like, oh, that was unique. And then so finished the ceremony, and then we're sharing, and she shared, and she was like, that was the most spiritual experience I've ever had. I fully received like this transmission of love, appreciation, gratitude.
Wow. That's so cool. So, like, what you're putting out there is being
Oh yeah.
received.
It's like a wave. We're projecting it, your thought, everything.
Right. It's almost just like with Kundalini yoga, they talk about like Yogi Bhajan would project his aura and the whole group would be in it. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what you're doing.
No,
You're
I do that in the beginning before anyone shows up. I go to the center of the room and I just like fill the whole room with my aura.
right. And so, like, when someone's having a hard time, you can probably feel it in your own way because it's connected to your aura because you're connected to them. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go help this person, right? I definitely felt like somehow when you would walk around, it was like I like when I had the head thing, I felt like you somehow would like do the what was the sound that sounds like rain?
Oh yeah, the
And
rain
it was
stick.
so I was like, oh, I really needed it at that moment. It was like you really are like a really good guide, and I don't know if you're full like it's probably very intuitive. So you're not
I enter that altered
right.
state, and then I'm just a part
Right.
of the symphony that's occurring.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful to see how it's affecting every person.
Oh yeah.
And I'm grateful for people like you that are doing this work and like they hear the call and they listen.
Oh yeah. I've done that a couple times to a few different people, and I've seen them react to when I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, how did they know I stuck my hand? They're wearing a
Right.
mask, but
Right.
they like their breathing changes and they open up, and I'm like, what
Mm-hmm.
is going?
That's
So
beautiful.
it's all brand new to me, but I just do it because I knew that's what I needed to do.
Right.
And so the other thing that stood out to me was I was at another yoga studio in Knoxville at Evolve, and I did a ceremony there. And I was walking around, and I was playing my drum, and it was just like I walked into this wall. It just stopped me dead in my tracks, and it was like a wall, and the drum went dull. It was singing, and then it went dull, completely dull. And so I was like, okay. So I like stood there and played, and went all the way down to the floor and then up kind of to the ceiling, and it like felt it kind of breaking up. And then I went to the other side of the room, and then it happened again. And so I think it moved. And so I did it again, and then it cleared away, and then the drum started singing, and then I did the whole ceremony. And at the end, I asked people to share, and not very many people wanted to share, but 2 months later, this woman reaches out to me and she's like, hey, I was at your ceremony at Evolve, and I really had some really profound experiences occur with the cacao, and then with your sound healing ceremony. And I was like, oh yeah, you mind sharing? And so she told me that she was being extremely judgmental and like skeptical of like my intentions, and then also sound healing, and is this going to work, is this going to do anything. But she was also full of fear, and she was really scared. And
Mm.
so I think what happened is I walked into that wall of fear, and then I broke it up, and then she just
Wow.
had like the
I just
most
got chills.
profound experience that occurred, that was just life changing for her. and
Right.
and she pretty much said that the Kundalini talked to her, the serpent, and was like, you, it only wants to arise when it's not scared. When it's scared,
Ah.
it remains coiled.
Right.
When you're not in fear, then it will rise.
Right. That's so beautiful. I was talking to someone about like mystical experiences the other day, and just like some of the things I experienced, and they're like, "Oh, I would be so afraid." And I'm like, "That's exactly why you're not having the experience. Is because if you're afraid, it wouldn't be healthy. So unless you eliminate the fear, it's never gonna go there. Like you can't like just project if you're afraid to leave your body, so you have to start at, what am I afraid of? Like what's the deepest fear there, and work on that before you try to go off into the cosmos somewhere, right? It's like there's a reason that the fears come up. So that's so cool.
Oh yeah, I think we're held there,
Yeah.
in sense.
All right, so I know that you were talking about your hemp farm. What are some things that you grow, and do you sell any CBD products?
Yes, so I grow organic, pesticide-free produce, all different kinds of fruits and vegetables, and then I also grow culinary mushrooms on logs. I'll grow like shiitake and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And then I do have CBD and Delta 8 products. So I make my own tinctures, salves. Then I also have like gummies, chocolates, vape carts, flour. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you do tinctures with the mushrooms at all?
I don't do any mushroom tinctures, mainly because right now all I'm growing is shiitake and oyster mushrooms. And then I do a wine cap, but I'm not growing like reishi, which is what you'd put into a tincture or something like that. I do take those supplements, but no, I haven't started growing my own. Eventually, though, I would like to. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And then I also keep bees. Pretty much just like regenerative agriculture slash permaculture is what I'm going to be developing, the property into.
Right. We can do like a whole episode on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, soil is important and regenerative agriculture is important. You can't just keep dumping salt-based fertilizer on fields. And I mean, it's just killing all the microbes in the soil. It's all going into the water system. And then the pesticides that are applying is all coming into our food and into the water system.
Right.
And I mean, using regenerative agriculture practices, you can, restore the land to how it should be and actually, pull a really organic, good, nutrient dense crop. And then utilizing flowers and companion crops, you can help, eliminate bugs. And then also rotating your crops on different fields, that helps. So there's practices that you can use to do it, sustainably and organically, and without having to, put a really all this chemicals on the planet that, they've already shown after like 20 years of doing that, all your soil starts just washing away because all the microbial life dies. And
Right.
in your plants, yeah, they're good at first when you first start doing it, but after 15 years, you have to add way, way more to get the same results.
Right.
It just quits working.
Right. It's really crazy. I never thought so much about the soil and in the food until I developed a heart arrhythmia that was from a magnesium deficiency. And I started looking it up, and I was like, I am not getting enough because we've killed the soil. Like, so the foods aren't as nutrient dense. So now I have to supplement. But
Cacao will help that.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I should
Full
be
of
probably,
magnesium.
I should be
Yeah.
doing that more often.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's where I learned the hard way there. But the doctors are just like so casual about it. They're like, yeah, this is just what you have, And I was like, well, I've researched some, magnesium. What do you think? And they're like, that's probably good. And I started taking it, and I haven't had a heart palpitation basically since. It was a magnesium the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's a lot of us are depleted in essential nutrients because even though we're eating the food, we're not getting
Right. The
it.
food
Yeah.
it's not the same
full of
food
sugar.
that we were, yeah, it's not the same as it was 100 years ago. you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, and even when you're like doing organic farming and stuff, like you still go out to eat occasionally. You're still going, like all of us are so exposed to the pesticides, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
I mean, I felt like at one point I was on a path to being very ill, you know, but I wasn't quite there yet. But I was like, maybe I have like fibromyalgia or something. Like I'm having lots of inflammation, and it's the food.
No,
It's
it
the
is.
food and water, you know.
Yeah. And plants, I mean,
Yeah.
just consuming a lot of vegetables and good produce is full of anti-inflammatory properties.
Right.
And then the mushrooms, like lion's mane, is really good for mental clarity. And reishi, that's the mushroom of immortality. I know there's some studies showing that feeding that to bees increases their life expectancy double. So I'm
Right.
like, it's called the mushroom of immortality. Like this is like absolutely something you should be putting into your body.
Right.
So like all those mushroom supplements, I mean that's really something that you need to consume. They're just
Right.
packed full of antioxidants and good stuff.
But it's like if someone doesn't tell you, it's so hard to know. You go to the store, you have one type of mushroom,
Yeah, yeah.
and you think, oh, well, I've had mushrooms I don't like. I'm like, you've had one. There's so many. There's so many, and I do a mushroom tincture. It's
Yeah.
called the Boost, but it has like multiple things in it, and it is so good. Like it's way better than coffee. It's like I get like clarity. I'm awake. I'm not jittery. I feel nice, you know. And I was totally unaware until my herbalist was like, maybe you should try this, you know? So I talk about it a lot because before that, no one had ever shared that with me. I had no idea that there was power in mushrooms. Like,
Oh yeah. We share 50% of our DNA with them.
that's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, they're more related to us than they are to plants. They breathe air. They get like all the same viruses we get. Like scientists use them to study different viruses and how to like fight that, on mushrooms because they're so similar to us. But
Wow.
yeah, it's fascinating.
I
And I mean,
love
they're all conscious. That's how all the plants talk to each other is through
Right.
mycorrhizal. That's
Right.
like their nervous system, or like their neural network. Like that's how the plants in the forest communicate
Right.
is through fungus.
That
Yeah.
is really cool. I love
And
this.
then we die and they eat us,
Right. And
And
it's
then the plants eat
symbiotic
the yeah.
relationship. That's so awesome. So, let's see. All right, so I'm going to share with you guys what I wrote down after my sound healing session and just see if it resonates with you. So, all right, I started in a rainforest and was approached by a howler monkey. He took my hand and walked me towards this viney ivy area and pulled back the vines to show me a big rock that had a handprint painted on it. When I put my hand on top of the print, the rock opened into a doorway. The monkey stayed guarding the entrance as I walked through. I noticed that I was becoming smaller with each step I took, and then there was another gateway that I walked through. We were no longer in the rainforest, but still in nature on a sunny day. I realized that I had wings. As he banged the drum, the other fairies and elementals came out from all over to gather. Some looked like stick people and leafy. Not all were fae, but all worked together with a similar purpose. They took notice of me and knew I was not from here. They wanted to give me a message that we are the earth, that we need to know that the only way that we can save the earth is to nourish our bodies and care for our physical bodies because there is no separation between us and the earth. Like humans are just flowers blooming out of the mother, and we have forgotten. If we want to save the earth, we must remember, we must remember we are the earth and it starts within us. They were very adamant that I understood this. Then they wanted me to see the sun how they see it. Because I was in an elemental body, I could see with their eyes. They told me to look at the sun. When we as humans look at the sun, it appears as a sphere, and the rays are always shown as waves. But that is not what it really looks like. It is spiraling in constant motion, and the rays spiral to us. Also, we have a symbiotic relationship to the sun, and it absorbs as much as it puts out. I tried to explain it like one aspect was a black hole sucking things in, and on the other side, it was like a white hole, for lack of a better term, and transmuted what it had absorbed into life energy. Sort of how a tree converts carbon dioxide into oxygen. They really wanted me to understand this, and that humanity needs to know that we need the sun the same way that we need oxygen, and not to block it out. That we must prevent the blocking of the spiral waves, that they are the key to our survival. It's funny because a fire truck with sirens was driving by as I was receiving that message, which heightened the urgency factor. After this, I was being called back to my body, so I went through the gateway I came in and became larger with each step and found my monkey guide waiting for me. I laid back down on the rainforest floor and opened my eyes and was back in my body. I woke up very disoriented. It took me a bit to feel grounded after this. So that was my experience. It was really cool because I have never connected to the elementals like that. And I was not just talking to them. I actually was them for that one moment. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
Just do your best to integrate love, appreciation, and gratitude. That's the message that I received that I must transmit.
Right. Thank you for that. So, what's the best way for our listeners to follow you and contact you?
So you can go to my website, rockytopgenetics.com, or email me at rockytopgenetics@gmail.com, or you can call my cell phone at 678-822-7347.
Right. And you do these at yoga studios, but you also can like go to people's homes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I get a lot of profound effects from individual sessions, but also I like doing the ceremonies because it's like a group experience, and everyone's energy is incorporated into the room. But absolutely, I do individual sessions, and if you want to do group sessions at your home or fire ceremony, that's my favorite, especially with the spring coming up.
Right, so you can do it outside
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. That's my favorite, to do it, and then I can barefoot standing on the ground while I do it.
That sounds really cool. I didn't realize that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a
this now.
fire, and the gongs are just absolutely captivating with the fire reflecting off them. It's crazy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for having
out and doing this beautiful work that you do. It's very appreciated. So
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.